Most people don't realize the first fall is where everything starts to change. It's not because of the injury itself, but because of what that injury can and often does lead to. More caution and less confidence, and often a life that starts to look very different, including more sitting and less going out. And that's why when you fall once, your risk of falling again nearly doubles. I'm a home care physical therapist, and I see what happens after someone falls. And it's usually not pretty. In this video, I want to show you what most people don't prepare for. The reason I'm telling you this now is because everything I'm describing is so much harder to fix after the fall than it is to prevent before it ever happens. It starts on the ground, somewhere you never expect it to be. And hopefully, if you can't move, you either have a phone on you or there are people nearby that can help out. I've heard some rough stories of people being stuck on the ground for many, many hours after falling down because they just didn't have anyone available to help. Then comes the ambulance ride to the ER. Once you're in the ER, you're dealing with long waits, nurses and doctors coming in and out of your room, if you even get a room, and then just constant questions. And if you've ever been to the ER, you know how frustrating an experience that can be. From there, you'll likely be admitted if your injury is severe enough, as 1 million adults are hospitalized every year following a fall. And a hospital stay is not fun. After a few days, you're going to leave the hospital and you'll likely end up in a short-term rehab where now the real journey begins. Because the first couple weeks of recovery aren't just about the places you go or the help you get. They're about what your body and mind go through each day. The first few weeks after fall will be very tough. There'll be shock, wondering how this could happen to you. You had thought it only happens to people much older or to somebody else, but not you. And then you have constant pain throughout the day. No matter how much you ice or how religious you are with your pain meds, the pain is going to be there. And sleeping will be difficult, if not impossible, in the beginning. Activities you took for granted during the day now seem monumental. Bathing, getting dressed, walking. Depending on what the injury was, it could mean you are non-weight bearing and you likely have no idea how difficult living life is when you can't put weight through your leg or an arm. You may have heard how challenging a hip fracture is to recover from, but an ankle fracture that is surgically repaired and non-weight bearing can be more so in the first couple of months. This is where you hope you have enough upper body strength to allow yourself to hop around on crutches or a walker all day, really for weeks on end. On top of the physical pain, there's exhaustion you weren't expecting at all. Even things like getting dressed, sitting up, or eating a meal can just leave you drained. It's frustrating and can leave you more depressed than you realize. And of course, you'll be wondering if and when you will get back to normal because you can only take so much lying around. And this is just a start, despite how difficult it already appears. The ripple effect will hit weeks later. It's like a row of dominoes where one fall knocks over more than you realize. And once they start falling, it's hard to stop them. This is where things really start to change. Not in your body, but in your daily life. Family members and home health aides often step in to help, but then they end up becoming too involved. They always mean well, but sometimes they do too much without even realizing it. When you have someone getting you food and cleaning, even at a point in time when you could be doing it yourself, it's going to decrease your activity level. And decreased activity leads to longer recovery and just more frustration. I often have to tell these individuals who are helping to let the patient do more. The problem isn't the help, it's that movement quietly disappears from your day. I had a patient recently, and I see this all the time, who could stand and walk on her own, yet her son insisted on doing everything for her. Despite doing her exercises, she progressed so much slower than she should have, and it was mostly because of how much help she continued to get the other 23 hours of the day when she wasn't doing her exercises. And just like parents can become overprotective of young children, the opposite occurs here, and it's never beneficial for the patient. Depending on your injury, hopefully by now you're starting to progress off of your walker. And this can be scary because when you've been using a walker to help you, you really become dependent on it. And walkers should be seen as a tool. They're not a permanent long-term solution. I find that this is where having a good PT with the right exercises for you is key. Having strong quads here will make a world of a difference. And hopefully, you take this as your sign to build them up now before we ever get there. Because far too often, I see patients who have lost so much quad strength in the months after injury that they struggle to walk without that walker. And it becomes questionable if they'll ever get that confidence back in their legs again. And this struggle to get back to walking actually goes for all other activities. Getting back to walking outside, doing stairs, and getting out and going to stores and restaurants. Each one is a step up and another challenge that you're going to be faced with in this journey. And for some people, this is just too much to overcome. And the easy option is to stay at home, spend more time in the recliner watching TV, and unfortunately, keep getting weaker. This is where I see people go one of two ways. Some will slowly lose their independence over the coming years as their days consist of more time inside and on the recliner, and before long, their whole day is just spent sitting. Others work their way back to the life that they had before the fall, but unfortunately, very few can say they get back to their prior life. Half of all adults who fracture their hip never return to their previous level of mobility, meaning if they walked without a cane before, they'll never get back to walking like that again. What actually takes people down here after a fall is not the injury. It's the months and years of fear and lost strength that slowly accumulate. I find that the people who recover best usually share one trait. They were the strongest going into the fall. It's just so much easier to recover from a big injury when you already have strength and fitness on your side. You need to make sure that one fall doesn't permanently change your life, because the goal isn't to avoid every fall. At some point in life, you will find yourself on the ground. It happens to all of us. But building strength now will be the determining factor as to what happens next and what your recovery looks like.